So it's something a little bit different today to kick off your weekend. Joined by Micky P Kerr, actor. Well, no, you're not actor. You're a musician, aren't you? Really, musician. You do a little bit of everything. Musician,
comedian,
yeah,
and now an author. Yeah,
you do a lot, and a teacher. We just spoke about this off air. I knew you were a teacher, and you're still teaching. So you're a busy man, Micky. A busy man. Thank you for coming on. How are you?
Too busy. Not too busy for you, Matt. Not too busy for you.
Well, absolutely. How's things been with you? You've been all right because you are a Leeds fan, a promotion chasing Leeds fan. So are you happy with this season? How things are going?
Yeah, it's good in the Championship. You know what? If worse comes to worse, it won't do for West Ham because these. We'll talk about monopolization and the way it's going now. You're gonna have to get less than 20 points if you want to get relegated these days because the stretch now, the gap between the Premier League and the Championship is so big that you go up and you don't stand a chance. But you know, it's a competitive league, less so than it was. But we have a great team. We're like the Man City of the league, you know. We kind of play like Pep. We keep the ball. It's very possession based. We control games. We just don't have that killer instinct that the world class players have got in the Premier League. But it's enjoyable because you're winning, and you go to the Premier League and you think, what's the point? I mean, we're just going to go straight back down because if there's any team that can get out of it, it might be Leeds if we do end up going up because we're big commercially and we can spend a little bit more. But I think Ipswich were the biggest spenders this year. And you look how far that's got them. And the teams that are going up now, they're so far behind. The gap is so big, even to a team like Wolves, who have been really poor this season. But their squad is infinitely better than the Championship teams, that hybrid teams that you're getting now. Too good for the Championship and nowhere near the level of the Premier League. Do you know what, mate? This is about looking at the bigger picture, but the project we're going to chat about. And no one's doing that. This is the interesting thing. No one's doing it. I've just got some stats here, mate. Some stats you will have never heard. And to say that is incredible in modern football with the amount of analysis and data we've got. All I do is mean average over 10 years. And when you look at that, you see patterns. And in terms of relegation, we'll chat about the top end of the league at some point. But you've got this in 1981, you get 3 points for a win. So we'll start there. Average team is 34 points. And it's repeated in the 90s. So you see where that 40-point rule comes from, the guaranteed promotion safety. It's 34 points mean average. And it drops to 31. And then the last decade, it's 30. But we're at the start of a new decade now. So we're 3 years in. And I think we've entered a new phase in the monopolization process because the mean average now is 26. And that's discounting this season. This season, the average points per game of the bottom three is 0.5. So if things continue as they are, we're going to have a mean average of 19 points. So this is where we are. I think if you come up to the Premier League now, 20 points is a bad year, but 30 points is a great year. And, teams like Wolves are going to probably get 31, 32. So you're just not going to be able to stay up.
It's very tough, and you are right. I mean, it's something I've noticed certainly this season more than ever. The gap now is quite frightening. Because in fact, it's the first, the three teams that came up are going straight back down. But it's not as if Micky that they've come up and given a good account for themselves. And you think, it's quite tight. They've been down pretty much, before Christmas. You can kind of sense like it's done. They're not staying in this league. It is worrying actually. I do agree with you. I don't like it. I think it's. The gap's now becoming so large that, like you say, Leeds come up and all right, Leeds are a big football club, and you'd like to think are going to have that extra bit of money and that little bit of extra pulling power to bring in the sort of players you're going to need. But even still, you've got to be so shrewd. You've got to be so good at who you bring in. It's got to work. It's just got to work.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, very tough. Forest were very shrewd. They broke the rules for a start. That's what you've got to do now. These profit and sustainability rules are ridiculous. They're really reactive. They're kind of freezing the pyramid in time as well, because it means that the bigger monopolies that have all the spending power, they can obviously spend more money because they earn more, they've got more revenue. And the smaller teams, the middle class teams like West Ham, you could say middle class, they're just you're not able to spend that amount of money, and over time you're just not going to be able to compete. They were really good at getting the best acquisition they made. Forest was 42 million for Gibbs White, because it raised a few eyebrows, but he's really proven his worth. And they've had a few cast-offs like Ilanga Hudson-Odoi, but the monopolies, Chelsea and Man United, they shouldn't have let them go. They're good players, and Chris Wood's been great. But what happened to Forest is this: the same thing that happened to Leicester, the same thing that happened to Wolves, that will happen to Forest. It's acquisitions. They'll asset strip them. If you do well, if a good player comes through now at West Ham, let's say a great player came through your academy, who's one of the best midfielders in the world, is he going to stay at West Ham? No, he'll go to Arsenal. That's what happened to Declan Rice. That's what happened to Leeds United. We had the Gray dynasty coming through. We've got Archie Gray. He's 18. He's gone. He's not even, this is where it is. All the best players go up. And, teams like Spurs take Archie Gray, but they're not at the top of the pyramid. You look at someone like Gareth Bale. If Archie Gray turns out to be a Champions League player, he'll go up again. Spurs won't even keep him. So we've come to this point now where the pyramid is literally frozen in time. Football follows the economic theories of neoliberalism, which always ends up with monopolies and debt. So that's where football is. And if we want to change it, we've got to switch philosophies. It's really at the core of my argument, this. But if we don't do anything, what's going to happen is an ESL, and it's inevitable. It's coded into the economics. It is going to happen. And I was on a Spurs podcast yesterday chatting about it, and they had a discussion afterwards after I'd left the stream, and they were saying, a couple of lads were saying, it won't happen because the Premier League, the English Premier League, the European Super League needs us more than we need that. And they're forgetting a really important bit of information, Mark, a really obvious bit of information. The English clubs are owned by the English. And the Premier League work for these clubs. The Premier League work for the same people that our politicians work for. They work for the oil industry and they work for US private equity. That is who owns English football now. So these people are chomping at the bit to get this European Super League over the line. It'll end up as a World Super League, and it'll be franchised. They'll do it through mergers and acquisitions. That's how monopolies work. And they'll do it through something called vertical integration, which means you control the entire supply lines of footballs. They're going to merge with the partners. They're going to merge with the broadcasters and the commercial deals as well. The whole thing's a giant merger. And there's, the Premier League will become a backwater domestic league because no one watches the second tier. They watch the first tier of football.
It's almost as if, Mickey, they're trying to take the sport aspect out of the game because the thing is, obviously, the unique thing with let's stick with football, but in sport in general, the unique thing it has is that you don't know who's going to win. It's a competition. So these people that are pumping all this money into these football clubs and all these investors that are putting this money into these clubs, Arsenal, for instance, if they're sitting around and looking at a business model, if it wasn't a sporting business, you could look at your business models, you can get your spreadsheets out at the beginning of the year and go, this is what we're forecasting to do. This is how we're going to achieve things this year. And it's probably quite achievable for most businesses. They can go, yeah, we can see our pathway here to what we're going to do. I think the problem is with football, you can't really do that because you could say, right, okay, we're expecting, let's say Arsenal, we're expecting Champions League football. We'd like to win the Premier League. We'd like to, so if we can win these things, this is our kind of money we're expecting to be making this year, et cetera, et cetera. But there's no guarantee of that. They might finish 10th and then, no Champions League football, not even European football. And I feel like as well that if they then have to go, well, we don't like that. We don't like this model. We don't like the fact that we might not get European football. So I'll tell you what, let's set a system up so we will get European football. We are going to get this revenue in, regardless of how crap we've been all season. It doesn't matter. It's kind of taking, I think, that sporting aspect away from the game. It's kind of, it's just, as you say, it's a monopoly, isn't it? Exactly. Like you've been saying.
Yeah, it is. This is a key distinction, actually, because when the Victorians set football up, this is how it worked. It was a sport first and a business second. There's loads of regulation. Rule 34 was key. That meant that your shareholders weren't allowed to pay themselves dividends. It meant that clubs were in the interests of communities. They were community assets. They had sharing of gate receipts. They had a wage cap. All this meant that football was a sport in competition. It was integrity above anything else. And now that's reversed. You can't turn around with a serious face and say that football is a sport. It's a business first now. It's a business first and a sport second. And you're right about the business planning and stuff like that. When you look at it's nice kind of metaphor to use really is the stock exchange. Players are like bonds and assets. You invest in a player, and you expect it to do well. You want a return on your investment, but it doesn't always work out. Teams like Brighton have managed to buck the trend. They've bought low and sold high, but you can't keep doing that. Eventually, with the way that it is now and the money they're spending, it doesn't always work out. Like I said, look at Spurs and look at Man United. They've struggled this season because players are human beings, they're not bonds and assets, and sometimes it doesn't work out. They can get injured or they can just not fit in or whatever. But over time, if you keep outspending everybody else, which is what's happening, all the money stays at the top. You get rewarded for winning. You get more money for winning. You look at the UEFA club thing they've got going on now. It's £1 billion in prize money. All that's staying at the top. Then you get these profit rules, whatever, sustainability rules. They're pulling ideas out of an hat here. Just trying to set a facade, trying to stop teams from competing with the bigger monopolies, which is what they are. They're mimicking strategies for monopolization in the wider economy, because football mirrors the wider world perfectly. This country is run by Americans, really. Look at our football league. And another big lobbying power is the oil industry. Look at our Premier League. It's the same thing. And my point is this: when they did A22, this company that set the ESL up initially in 2021, it was a faux statement that you normalise this over time. But what's happened, it takes about 10 years to normalise. And everyone's talking about the European Super League now. No one was before. So that's a really successful first step. But A22 are the company that did it, and they did it outside the remit of UEFA. Now, UEFA have panicked and gone, wow, this European Super League is happening with us or without us. So now it's happening with us. So UEFA are going to facilitate this shift towards a European and then eventually a World Super League structure. It happens incrementally, it just happens slowly. But you look at the European Cup, it's a league. It's already a league.
It is, yeah, absolutely. I was about to say that, yeah.
These things happen slowly over time. And the Premier League are also going to facilitate this shift. This is a system of brown envelopes. They don't work for us. We know that.
No.
All these price hikes, the Premier League could have stopped it years ago. They could have turned around to clubs and said, £20 is plenty, like they have in Germany. Every club could do a £20 a ticket.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't do it. They choose to, it's laissez-faire, let the big clubs get on with exploiting the fans. They don't work for us. And my point in the book is this: who are the Premier League? Who appointed them? They're self-regulated, they're self-appointed, and they are about to be in control of a huge company. Now, we're going to talk briefly, mate, about broadcasting here. I know we're jumping around. There's so much. We're trying to get this done in a short amount of time. There's so much to discuss. And I've written this book, Football, the People's Shame, How to Revolutionise National Sport, that shows us how to fight back as fans. But the digital broadcasting is key. The Premier League are useless. I found this in 2021. It was actually Simon Jordan talking about it online and thought, wow. So you can do the Premier League broadcasting from a single digital source. You stream it. Amazon do it. They've done it and they've done a great job. Everyone loved Amazon's coverage. But now we're stuck in the satellite age still. With Sky, have got a contract till 2028. But if you do it from a single source, mate, you've got 200 million people paying to watch Premier League football, upwards of £30 a month. Charge them £10, it's £24 billion a year. I know. Premier League wages, £4 billion-ish. And then you've got the fact it costs somewhere between £500 and £1 billion to run. This is gargantuan profits, mate. And the Premier League at the minute could have set this up, but they wear suits and they do nothing. They don't do anything. What they're going to do, and it's pretty obvious to me, is they're going to sell this company over to the Americans. The Americans will do it. We don't have any digital software in this country. No digital tech software. It's all American. We don't have anything. I mean, in the 21st century, Britain has no digital tech infrastructure. It's a joke. If this country was a car, it wouldn't even pass an MOT, mate. It's that badly run. So we've got to be thinking about new ideas. And my basic idea is this: imagine if that digital streaming service works for us, for the country. It suddenly everything's turned on its head, and you can actually run football as a public service. You can pump tens of billions into football or into the wider economy, or use it through the football clubs to pump it into smaller communities. There's different ways we can play with this. What about a public gambling company as well? Throw that into the mix. That would earn billions. We've already got one. It's called the National Lottery, actually, and it does a great job. It kind of works for the people. It sets up loads of charities and businesses, and these are just new ideas. And there's a way of getting the club owners out. And yes, this is really ambitious, but we've got to think big here, because it's macro change is needed. There's no point in going with this neoliberal concepts of Milton Friedman economics anymore. We've got to change it. It's ruining the country and it's ruining football. Now, the fight to get Levy out is the fight to get the Glazers out. It's the same fight that they want Kroenke out right across the clubs, and it definitely applies to West Ham. We chatted about it earlier. I know you're very unhappy with the owners and what's going on. It's all the same fight. We've got to unite as fans, start coming together and build a movement that attacks the Premier League, the governance of English football, and says, we can do this without you. And as soon as we start attacking the Premier League, as soon as we set a movement up, they will panic and we will get concessions aplenty. But I will talk about how we kick the owners out. But just imagine that West Ham banners stood with Arsenal banners, West Ham banners stood with Levy out. I went over and protested. I'm a Leeds fan. I went over and protested with the 1958, the Man United Glazers Out group. And you know what, mate? This book took 3 years to write. It was a publishing deal, got really lucky, worked with some great people. It was hard. It was a long, long process. But doing that, standing with those lads, we met in the pub and got chatting. They took me in as one of their own. They knew I was a Leeds fan. Then there's cameras in front of us. We're about to go and march towards Old Trafford, and loads of people slapping on the back saying, "Go on, Leeds, lad!" And that felt more important than anything I've done in this movement, because it's about people. It's about togetherness. That's what it's about us. It's about our culture, and that. I know that it felt like the most powerful thing I've done. So if you make something on telly, call me Man United Mike now, you know what I mean? But it's like,
But it's great though. That's what I like to see. As you say, it's the bigger picture. You park your rivals, don't you? We're together as football fans, not as rivals. I mean, obviously that can be parked for a bit, and I totally share it. I mean, I know that there'll be West Ham fans watching this that will feel very passionately about this and wanting change. The ways football is going is concerning. It is worrying, and it has, like you say, it's not. It's over time, isn't it? It's bit by bit, chipping away. You can see the changes. Like, for instance, when they brought in the financial fair play, I think they used Berry, I think, as the example at the time. And I think they use these opportunities to go, all right, this is why we're putting this in place. It's to protect these smaller clubs. It isn't. There's nothing to do with protecting clubs. It's to protect the bigger clubs, to say, you've got the revenue. Yeah, it protects them. I mean, look at Newcastle, the prime example of it. Newcastle, like Leeds, strong northern, huge support and passion for their football club. And, I've been to Newcastle a few times, and much like Leeds, it's that sort of passionate city. Everyone talks about the club. It's just in the fabric of it. They've been bought out. Okay, we might not like where the money side of it comes from. Let's just park that for the minute. But they've been bought out. They've got this money now to spend, and they're not able to do it. They're being blocked. They're having to sell players. They're talking about this summer. They might have to sell Anthony Gordon to try and then go again. They might have to sell Isak to then go again.
Yeah, Isak's going.
They've got like 5 million in their bank account. You know what I mean? They can't spend it, but they can't spend a couple hundred. Crazy.
It's a power game. Do you know what? They've got the financial fair play. If you want financial fair play, strictly control the market. That's how you should do it. If you want to make football clubs profitable, make them profitable. You could do that. You could just give them more money and say, don't spend it all on players. I mean, I've got a bit of regulation in the book, actually, because if you start talking about wage caps, people panic and go, well, the Premier League will become a backwater domestic league compared to other leagues will spend more. But this is a very nuanced debate. But here's a great bit of regulation we could do that would still leave free market economics, but would make clubs look inwards and would bring locality back. And it's just have 2 lads on the pitch at all times that were born in certain hospitals under the age of, say, 21 or 22. And if you do that, it could be one player, it could be three. It's a fluid concept, but you're making clubs look inwards. And this is about fusing really what a lot of us want to see the local lads do well. A lot of us want to see local lads playing for their club and their people. If you do that, you guess what you get, and you also get the world-class players. You're fusing local lads with world-class players, and I think that's a better model for the Premier League. And it also evens it up. You can't just buy in your success. You have to earn it, at least to a certain extent. So it's just sensible bits of regulation like that we could implement. But the Premier League have got no interest. All they're looking at is brown envelopes, jostling for position in the power of this new superstructure and doing the bidding of the biggest clubs. What they want is what they get. And yeah, football's a real mess financially, and the economic landscape and the moral landscape, it's in real tatters. We have been forced out of our clubs. There is no doubt about that. I know that West Ham have got atmosphere problems because every Premier League club has got atmosphere problems. The fact that we've got atmosphere groups is ridiculous. I mean, it never used to be like that. You want a cauldron of hostility. That's what Upton Park was.
Yes, yeah.
We're part of this brand. That's what I'm saying. And there is a way we can win if we get together. There's 5 or 10 million of us in this country that are passionate, but lower end really passionate. But there's probably 5 million of us who are really up for this. In terms of this, more than just a business. This is more than just a sport. This is our kind of quasi-religious, really, isn't it? Football and that connection we've got with our clubs. We're part of this brand, and if we get together, form a political movement, and threaten to take over, I think we'll get a lot. There's a big opportunity here because we can get rid of the owners. Brexit is actually advantageous. What I've theorised is a way of. We have to do it through acts of parliament. You have to set up a political movement. They do this in Germany. They're very political in Germany, football fans, and they get a lot out of football there. And they have actually been campaigning against the investment of billionaires. They've kicked them out, which is interesting. They got that new deal, didn't they? And they with broadcasting, they got rid of it. So the Germans are fighting for democracy, which is what we should be fighting for. We should democratize English football. But,
I think as well. I think that attraction as well, isn't it? That attraction from the foreign owner. That because when you look back at Chelsea, were kind of the first, weren't they, back in the early 2000s when you had the Abramovich come forward, and I think everyone got a little bit excited by it, and that could be my football club. And obviously we've seen it then since with Man City and a few others that have gone. All have gone. Wrexham are going through it at the moment, spending a bit of money and seeing that success. I think as well, people get a little bit excited by that. I wonder if that's starting to dilute now because really, one, can't spend anyway. We're seeing that with Newcastle. And two, I think because we're seeing the decimation now of football as we know it and what we know and love, like you say, that atmosphere and that passion seems to be slowly eroding away from the game. I think a lot of people would happily say, do you know what? I don't want a load of money in my football club. I don't care about us having 500 million this summer to go and spend. I think I'd rather happily sit with 50 million to spend and actually have my football club back as it was. And
absolutely.
You know what I mean? I wonder if that's gone.
I think there's a tipping point. I think we might be somewhere near it now where I say it's happening incrementally, we know it is, but after a while the goalposts have shifted so much that people are turning around and saying, actually, you're right. I mean, we've been locked out of our ground. The prices keep going up and up and up. This isn't football. It's an Americanized commercial event. It's a spectacle, but it's not this game that was handed down to us, passed through the generations, and we've got to fight for it back. And the only way to win is by uniting across the fan bases, because all this rivalry is great, but we're losing that. We're absolutely losing the rivalries because.
Mate, we've got at West Ham now, and I know this is slightly different, but it isn't actually different because this shows that West Ham, as you know, don't own our home ground. We lease it, and we've got operators, and I think Newham Council get involved. We had a European game in 2021, Rapid Vienna. We played them, and they threw coins throughout their away fans. They were diabolical, to be honest. I've never experienced anything like it, really. And literally, mate, this is before the game started. They're walking into the ground, you're getting coins coming at you and hitting you. Like, what is going on? Anyway, they were diabolical. Ugly scenes. It wasn't very pleasant. Anyway, at the end of the game, and then Newham Council, because they witnessed it, obviously it was in the papers the next day, decided just to put a wall up where the West Ham fans now are now. So there's a big wall. You can't even see the away fans. And it's like, Why would you do that? They're just it's because there's no football people involved anymore. It's almost like health and safety regulators come in and gone, I know what to do. No understanding of the sport. No, don't care. And it's been up there now for we're still there now, and it was put up in 2022. And funnily enough, we're doing a campaign at the moment to get it taken down.
I've heard of that campaign. Yeah, I've heard it.
Mate,
it's ridiculous. But I didn't know the reason it was up, but you say it's a ridiculous overkill kind of.
It is. It's things like that. It makes you go, "What the fuck is football?" I mean, this football and passion is supposed to happen. I'm not condoning throwing things, but you don't have to build a wall. You know what I mean? Just like you can. Oh, come on!
Who's ever asked us anything? By the way, who's ever asked us? You look at the Premier League and VAR. Most people don't really want it, and but that's not a discussion. We never get asked about what we want. There is no democracy. This is an authoritarian regime. It's like it's time to democratize football. You don't want too much democracy in the run of your club because nothing will get done. I was down in Newham actually last week doing a presentation to Clapham Community Football Club. They're great club. They're really dramatic. They're too democratic, I think. So because nothing gets done. But what we do need is these massive companies, the Premier League, the governing bodies, working for the country and for fandom rather than against it for the billionaires who are taking our structure, placing it somewhere else and creating this great structure where they can now, it's not even about trying to win, it's about control and power and soft power and influence on a global stage. The football's become totally used for the geopolitical reasons now. And the whole thing's ridiculous. What we need to do, I mean, and this is a big gear shift, I know, but the book has theorised how we can do it. You go through Acts of Parliament, you can nationalise football, but this is key distinction to make. We're not nationalising football, the state will own it. We're nationalising football, we will own it. It's a giant corporation. Football is cheap. You can buy every football club in England for less than track and trace. It's cheap. It's cheap at state level. And if we have this broadcasting model churning out somewhere between 20 and 30 billion as a conservative estimate, we can pay government back inside a single election cycle. And we can create a huge corporation that is owned by us and governed, or not even, it does our bidding every 4 years, every 2 years, you can have a vote, or we write a constitution, would be a better idea, how the game should be governed. And we take our product, which is our culture, our heritage, and we sell it directly to the rest of the world. No billionaires. Digital tech infrastructure that we own. Digital tech infrastructure that's British. Because that's what it's all about. At the minute, we're just letting Americans do it for us, and it's not working. We can't even tax them. So we need to establish our own tech infrastructure, our own kind of Hollywood, really. Because what else have you got linked with football? This brilliant culture that we developed that comes from our island. You've got music, you've got comedy associated with clubs, comedians and musicians. We could sell that to them as well. You look at music streaming and something's all gone wrong. Same in comedy. And what about shirt manufacturing? Why don't we take that? Do we need Adidas and Nike? Are you buying a Man United shirt, somewhere in Africa or Asia or North America because it's Nike? You're buying it because it's Man United. So there's a way of taking that. What about a public gambling company? We already have one. It's called the National Lottery. They earn a lot of money. Like I say, there's a way of amalgamating all these businesses, making them work for us, and running English football as a profitable public service without taxation. Now that's a vision, it's a dream. I think it's worth fighting for. But even if we don't win, even if it's too much to shift the Overton window over to that type of thinking, to reverse engineer neoliberalism, which is what we need to do in the economy and what we need to do in football, we can still win by attacking the structure, by getting, we will get concessions. That's how you look at like the things like the French Revolution. It did a lot for this country because the aristocracy felt threatened. So they give concessions. If you threaten the Premier League base, this undemocratic, authoritarian regime, self-appointed, self-elected, in charge of our heritage, if we threaten them, they will give us more concessions than holding up banners. Because as holding up banners and protests are good, but they only get you so far. We've got to organise, Mark, and that's part of what I'm on here to do, and to spread the message that there is a fight back coming. It's in its embryonic stage. We need a website. We need a name. I know that Andy Payne might be a name that is people are familiar with, Hammers fans. Andy read the book, and I've been talking to him for a couple of months now, and Andy's helping out with this. We need to strategize, and Andy's really backing it, and he's head of West Ham Supporters Association. So this is about.
I'll speak to Andy, and I'll speak to yourself. I mean, obviously, you've got the book. We'll put the link in the description below for your book to people to go and see it, to get a copy, and obviously, then what we want to do, Mickey, is to work with yourself and to stay in, to completely align ourselves with you, because it's something I'm very passionate about as well. I you know, as you say, it's part of our heritage. You know, this is sport, and it's in the way it's going. It's getting worse and worse, and it's almost as if it's shamelessly as well. You know, it's very clear what they're trying to do. There's no hiding it anymore. I think before it was always quite a clever way they were going about it. It was quite guys.
Yeah, smokes and mirrors only get you so far, though. Because
nowadays it's almost like it's there. It's so clear.
Big, And mate, where's the fight back, Mark? We've taken it all lying down, mate. It's time. I'm not saying I've got all the answers, but there are things we can agree on as football fans, that there needs to be a movement that stands up to what's happening. And let's discuss it. Let's get together and let's figure out some achievable aims. And, you know, we start small, we think big, and we grow this movement, because sometimes people can, I was speaking to for Arsenal fans recently, and like sometimes you go to a protest, but then it amounts to nothing, or what do we do now? But for me, if we can start going to each other's protests to carry the flag and the banner for all of us, for English fandom and for English football and culture, if we can make that the thing, then this is going to grow, and this is going to grow and grow. And, you know, I am meeting with politicians about this. There are some interested, because really it goes a lot further than football, this. But this is I'm not trying to say this is nationalisation and communist kind of control. It's not like that. There's a because I think people fear that still. But the privatisation of the public's fear, it's got that in itself is a big problem and a big issue. The government is bankrupt, and and we're going through austerity. So how's that working? You know what I mean? It's not spending money, but yet it is. It's full of debt. It can't spend anything. What we need is a public sector that's actually making money, and we need to own something in this country. And that's what I've theorised, a way of us making money, and the money coming back to us and us spending it the way we see fit. But we've got to think big. We've got to go on the front foot, because I think the British are in decline. There's a sense of British decline about everything we do at the minute. We've lost our empire. Now we've lost our football clubs. It's just another step in this declinist process. And what I want to try and do is turn around and say, do you know what? Let's end this period of decline.
Yeah. Actually fight back, like you say.
Yeah, let's go on the front foot and get Britain back, because we've got a great. I think what the British do well is football, sport, comedy, music, and there's a way of marrying all that, and going, let's tell this to the rest of the world. People are interested in our culture, and at the minute we've got what's happened, mate, is that, you know, I don't want to sound too jingoistic here, but the rest of the world have taken us on in our backyard here. And what it is, I mean, it's not reject direct foreign investment and stuff, and it's good to have investors in your country, but also there comes a point where you go, actually, Korea, you know, we need to build our own little bit of infrastructure. We need to work with the rest of the world, promoting our culture out to them. And I've said in the book, give away 10% to foreigners. If you give ownership to foreigners, you know, Man United have got over 600 million fans worldwide. If 500 million paid £1 a month, then you've got 6 billion going into Manchester United. Wow. So there's a way of doing this differently, and bringing the price down for Premier League subscription and offering them a slice of our cake. It's important that we think cleverly and get this commercial juggernaut that is the Premier League even bigger, because it's a really big asset for this country. It's just been used wrong. And I can tell you what they're going to do. I don't know if I've mentioned it. I'm repeating myself here. In 2028, the contract for Sky is up. The Americans are going to come in and do this, because we just let the Americans in. They do everything for us. It's time for us. The Premier League will sell us to the Americans, and once they own it, they get monopoly power. Up the prices go. They're using English football for their own geopolitical aims and whatnot, and their own commercial aims. Football, it's supposed to be for the fans. I mean, it's laughable. That's, football is laughable.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just laughable now.
Well, West Ham fans know that more than others. I tell you,
Totally.
we have got. I mean, the club are now doing a significant amount of backpedaling in terms of trying to appease the fans by having fan forum groups and trying to get things better. But I'll tell you what, again, it does feel a little bit like it's show. And
listen, Leeds United have just had. We had the Trust Leeds United Trust Foundation. They had a big conference with the club about we want can we freeze season tickets and stuff. And I was thinking to myself, this is meaningless. What we heard today, up the prices go. They listen to you, but they're laughing, mate. It's just they don't.
Yeah.
They listen to you, but their ears aren't open. They don't care. They do not care.
Didn't you have that badge? Didn't you have that? I don't know what happened with that crest. Wasn't it a fist or something like that?
It's also. Do you know what? It's in the book actually as an example of hard and soft power. You can win little debates like that because there's no economic consensus really behind that. It's just a case of the fans weren't happy. They wanted to change the bad. It was a bad PR call. The club backtracked, but then suddenly. Year later, the club have partnered with a cryptocurrency. I'm sure West Ham have as well, because it's all about, gambling going in our faces now. And we had the same backlash. Did the club listen? No. Did they relent? No. They went ahead with it because it's commercial, because there's money involved. And when it's hard money, they do not listen to you. They want tourists in that stadium. That's all,
mate. 100%. That is, and I feel like that's what's starting to happen as well. I feel like they actually want to get rid of fans. Really, over time, we're just going to slowly push them away. Get them so disconnected with their football clubs that they're just really not that bothered anymore. And they stop going. And we will sell tickets anyway because it's Premier League football, and it'll always sell, and we'll have all these tourists coming in. It does feel like that's the way the game is slowly going. Because I'm where I sit at West Ham now. Pretty much every game you look around, it's different people. You might have a few people, same faces. Most of the time, it's just different people every day, and and most of them aren't interested literally aren't even looking at the football pitch, just looking around the stadium, taking photos. They're on holiday. It's not their fault. You know what I mean? But it's
totally. You can't blame. There's no point in even. For me, honestly, there's no point in blaming the owners. What we've got to do is think systemically. The problem is the system. That's what we're going to go for. You've got to change the system. You've got to get the Premier League out of the way. They're useless. You've got to change the system, mate. Because if you bring a shark into your swimming pool, it's going to bite you. And that's what these people are. They are sharks. And they say one thing and do another. The PR's always corporate speak about how important the fans are. But look, judge them by their actions. You can see we're being priced out, we're being frozen out. There is a tipping point, and I think it'll be reached soon enough where we will actually know that fan bases are starting to come together and think together. And like you said, the idea of let's fight back, it's coming, this. And,
well, it comes, as you say, it comes a breaking point, doesn't there, when people have had enough, and I feel like that is there now. And I know there'll be a lot of fans watching this that will be very much supporting of you and wanting to help. In terms of then, obviously, as I say, we're going to put the link in the description below for your book. What's the next steps now then, in terms of how people can get involved? What's your kind of plans for the sort of not too distant future with this? How can people get involved and help?
At the minute, it's very embryonic. I'm looking to hit the podcast scene, which is great. You've got great communities here, and if I'm going to keep going through the podcast, I'm going to speak to a few 100,000 people doing that. This is no mainstream media thing behind it. There's no journalists behind it yet. There's no celebrity influencers behind it yet. It's a genuine organic movement from fan to fan. First job, we've got to eventually get a website and decide on a name. Now, Andy and I and a few others we're debating what to do, but. And where to go with this. At the minute, it's a case of just, if you can, get the book. It's on Audible as well, just to give you a change of perspective about what we should be fighting for, really, if anything else. And stay in touch. Get in touch with me. Get in touch with Andy Payne. We've got to organise within our fan groups and across the fan groups. But the idea of what can I do? It's a great question. And what can you do? Do it. Let's get together. Let's speak about this. Let's get the word out there, because I see this is this isn't happening next year. or the year after. I see this, 2029 is where we're building up to. And I think we've got to put some pressure on the Premier League. What are you doing with this next broadcasting deal? Because it's going to revolutionise English football, and it's going to change English football. And our position in the bigger picture is we're being squeezed out here. It's time to fight back. So get in touch with me. I'm on Twitter, Micky P Kerr. You can see it there. I'm on Instagram, and get in touch with Andy Payne. I know that Andy, I'm throwing his name around, but he is committed to this. And I've got a few people getting in touch and saying, what can I do? When do we start? Because the will to do this, the will to fight back is definitely there. We've just got to begin to build it. The obvious thing is a website, a name, and we start. I'd love to come down and do a presentation, Mark, because I've got, if I'll travel. I did one for Clapham. I'd love to come down and do a presentation in London and to get West Ham, some Gooners, some Hammers, the Spurs lot as well, Chelsea, all just in one place to listen to what a plan and to go, let's begin to build this movement. And we need a name, but there's loads of different ways it can go. And I want to be patient and try and.
You want to get it right. It's got to be done the right way, isn't it? Yeah, you don't just rush ahead.
Yeah, so it's a case of I'm having to learn patience here, mate, strategy and to be strategic, but I'm doing my best. It's been out 3 months. It was out in December, the book. So 4 months now. And I'm having to learn patience, but, it's getting there. It's slowly building. And I know that the timing's good because these Premier League price hikes have just pissed everyone off so much. And there is a point where people go, there's so much got to be done here. And what we suffer from, mate, is a poverty of imagination. We haven't imagined a fight back. That's what Football the People's Shame does. At least it imagines a fight back and it goes, right, we can win. If we get together, we can win. So what can you do? I would just say get in touch, mate. And I'd love to hear from any passionate West Ham fan. Do you know what?
There will be loads.
We're all part of the same club here. We all support the same thing. And underneath that fierce rivalry, we're all part of the same cultural cloth, and we're the ones.
Oh yeah. And absolutely. And I'll tell you what, there will be a lot of fans that want to be involved and help and do everything we can. And I'll tell you what we'll do as well. We'll have you back on here again to talk more of an update of where things are, and I'll obviously share things on our website and socials. But also as well, Micky, I'll speak to Dave and X, who are sort of I work for West Ham Way, and we do pre-match events with a lot of fans attend. I think there might be something you'd be quite interested in coming to and maybe speaking about it.
I'd love to, and it's been a real pleasure actually going and visiting other clubs, and just you get used to your own one, don't you? But you realise something; it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same people, the same sense of humour, and it's the same thing, mate. And so it'd be an honour to come down to Hammers, and it's a real pleasure to be on. So thanks.
Oh, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And, mate, I'll put the link in the description below for your book. Please go and check it out. Everyone watching this, go and order yourself a copy. It's really, I've only literally just started reading mine, and I'm very sort of engaged with it already. It's me, Micky, leading up to this. So, I'm fully behind this. I think it's just something that's needed, and quite excited by it, really. And as I say, anything we can do to help and support, just do be in touch. But thanks for coming on, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And as I say, we'll have you back on here very soon to sort of keep this message going, because I think there'll be a lot of fans that'll be very excited by this and very passionate about wanting to see that change. Look at that.
Go, mate.
Have a good one, mate. You look after yourself, Micky.
You too.
Take care, mate. Bye, mate. Bye.